Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, and it is International Women's Day. It's International Women's Day. And so it is also Women's History Month. I'm saying Women's History Month. And first, for International Women's Day, I would like to just acknowledge the greatest, most active woman in my life, my mother, Gina Marie Hill, otherwise known as Mama Java, who I'm sure is right here in the background. We're not going to be able to go in this morning and give our usual greetings to everyone. It is Waterfront Wednesdays. And as you know, through our partnership with the Boston Waterfront Coalition, they are with us every second Wednesday to talk about the waterfront, to talk about wellness, to talk about equity and inclusion and resilience when it comes to the waterfront. Now, when we talk about inclusion and resilience, you cannot have that conversation without talking about our wonderful queens and women who hold the world down, period. And as a part of their work, both of our guests are going to talk to us about their work. One's from the New England Aquarium, and one is from the West Fairmont Hill Group. They both are a part of the Coalition for a Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront. And so we're going to talk from their perspective as women, what may lead to them needing to maybe take a walk on the waterfront or be by the water, because as much progress as we've made, our women still need to be raised and celebrated more. And so we're going to bring them in, have them introduce themselves to you. Both of them I've met before. One I've seen more frequently and is a spouse of a longtime friend of mine. So we're going to start and bring in Luz first, and then also Marcia, and have them introduce themselves and say good morning. It is a pleasure to have both of you queens here with me. Happy International Women's Day. Happy Women's History Month. And so, Luz, let's start with you. Say hello and good morning. Marcia, you can say so as well right after Luz. And then we'll go into a little bit of introduction and conversation. But I'm excited to have both of you here on this International Women's Day to talk about your relationship and your work with Boston Waterfront. Luz.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. What a way to start the morning. And happy International Women's Day. Like you said, I'm Luz Gosses. I'm currently the Director of Community Relations at the New England Aquarium. I've been here since last year, and we're doing some really exciting work along the waterfront. So this conversation is going to be really great for that. And I'm originally from the Cape. So I think my connection to water has been my whole life. And it's really exciting to bring that now into my career.
I actually need to get to the Cape and to the vineyard. And believe it or not, I think I've been to the Cape once as a little kid, maybe, but in my adult life, no. And the vineyard as well. Marcia, say good morning and let folks know who you are and a little bit about the West Fairmont Hill Group.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Happy rising. My name is Marcia Kim Jackson, and I hail from the wonderful country of Jamaica, West Indies, and I settled in Boston about 40 years ago. And I started in Dorchester and now live in the Hyde Park community. I am the founder and lead of the West Fairmont Hill Community Group, which gave birth to the Racial Equity and Justice Forum. And both of those organizations are at the forefront of our community cohesion, transformation, and revitalization. And we've been doing this work for the better part of 20 years. And I'm so glad that I get to share this time with you, and especially happy to share our work with you on International Women's Day as we celebrate women and the leadership of women in Boston and Hyde Park and in our nation. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Both of you are in very intricate and important roles in your position. So maybe let's start with this. Luz, if I could ask you to give me one word in reference to International Women's Day, where women are. How do you feel about where women are as far as progress? If you could give me one word and some context, and Marcia, you get a little bit advantage because you have a few more minutes to think about your word. But Luz, let's maybe start with that and then tie that into what you're doing at the aquarium and then also with the Fairmont Hill Group, Marcia. But Luz, where are we at with this International Women's Day? Is there a lot to celebrate? How much more do we have to do? It's yours.
Yeah, I think there's always a lot to celebrate. I think the first word that came to mind was resilient. I think despite everything, the progress, the setbacks throughout history, women continue to be resilient, and especially women of color. And that, I think, very directly ties to the work that we're all doing, but especially the aquarium along our waterfront, to make it more resilient, both from an infrastructure piece. So, with the impacts of climate change and the flooding we see all the time, unfortunately, how are we changing that? But then also resiliency from making sure it's a welcoming space for people, especially women and families and friends who want to come down too. So I think we do have a lot to celebrate. I think there's still a lot to be done, but if anything, that is encouraging. And I think that's what pushes us along in this work.
Absolutely. We'll go a little bit deeper into the work that you're doing and also what the aquarium is offering. Marcia, from your perspective, give us one word as far as where we are on International Women's Day, the work, and also in relationship to the forum.
Sure. This is going to be hard, but I'm going to link a couple of words. Creative emotional intelligence. And that's to say that I have been noticing and I'm excited about the emergence of women in creative spaces, using their creativity for inspiration to draw people in and to propel the movement around elevating women's work, women's productivity, women's history, women's voice in our country and the society. And that's actually very linked to the ways in which the West Fairmont Hill has been doing work. Our most important work now is to elevate and to sort of center the experience of women in our community, particularly in this coming year. We're doing work around our Juneteenth celebration, elevating the voices of Black women in Hyde Park. Tanisha Sullivan, Ayanna Presley, Ruth Z. Loujean.
Yep.
So we really have been having a through thread around creativity, emotional intelligence, and linking those things around the way we lead as women, really being inspirational in our work.
Absolutely. And with what you said, and this time, Marcia, I'll start with you. In the context of International Women's Day, how do we best ensure all communities, and even from not just Boston, but in the United States, Luz referred to the fact of a lot of flooding, climate change. How do we ensure that women are intentionally centered in the conversation around policy, in the conversation around design, not just giving an opinion, but we know that there are women architects. We know that there are female-owned construction companies, things like that. How do we ensure that women stay included in the forefront of all of the waterfront development sort of impact of climate change going on, yes, in Boston, but across the United States as well?
How do we ensure that? Well, I think it's what's central to that is really the acknowledgement of the power that women have had over the years and continue to have. I look at the work that Michelle Obama is doing and her transparency and her emotional intelligence in telling her story and connecting it to all of our stories. And so for me, the intentionality is around really harnessing those traits and being sure that they're centered as important practices. So we talk about women leaders as being powerful and having resources and having a voice and being good negotiators. But yes, what about our emotional intelligence? What about our ways of connecting ourselves to others and our stories so that we can see the commonality of our humanity and how that's really important in an age where we're being separated, where we're being told that we are less than, that our stories don't matter. Intentionality of emotional intelligence and creativity is really important. So I think just being intentional around that.
I like kind of, it's just the right and smart decision, just to ensure that happens. Luz, what's your perspective? You're at the aquarium, and so presumably you may be a part of, I don't know, some sort of a national aquarium Coastline Front, I don't know, association or something. From your perspective on a national and local level, how do we ensure that women are at the forefront and leading and having a valid, intentional voice in all of this development and conversation around climate change and various waterfronts across the country?
Yeah, I think, Marcia, you put it really well. It's intentionality and creating trust in the community. Our aquarium, we're very fortunate to have, people know where the New England Aquarium is. People often have stories from their childhood, or maybe now as adults, if they have their own children, that they've come before. But I think we've made a very intentional effort to now go also out into other communities and meet people where they're at. And I think that shows that, it's not just a one-way street here. We want, as a community, for this to be a mutual relationship. And I think on a national level, we recently as a staff went out to Seattle to learn about their waterfront work and how climate change is affecting them. So again, making those efforts to go and meet people and just listen. I think it's one thing to be able to talk a lot, but to sit back and hear what people are going through, and especially women, and hear, what this work and the waterfront and everything means to them. And that can directly inform the work that then happens.
Absolutely. Luz, I'll start with you. Is there any one story or impact, a family have stopped you, a letter that, being by the waterfront at the aquarium has done X, Y, and Z? Is there anything that you can point to when you talk about the impact of the waterfront, the programming that you guys are doing? What is some of can you speak to some of the impact from someone else? And then we're going to talk about your, relationship to the water as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what comes to mind first is our Fierce Urgency of Now event that we hosted in September through the Chamber of Commerce, and we had Java with Jimmy there, which
cocktails and coastlines and cocktails. Coastlines
exactly
was the priority.
Yeah. Yes. I think that was just a phenomenal event, and there were people who said, I've never seen something like this on the waterfront, something so diverse, something so engaging, and that is the type of programming that we want to bring to the waterfront, because people want to go somewhere where they see themselves in what's happening, and that kind of representation matters line. So that stuck with me. And I think that's what encourages me to do this work, listening to those people saying, oh, wow, I didn't even know this was an option, not just at the aquarium, but along the waterfront or in Boston or whatever their context is.
Absolutely. Marcia, let me ask you, in the area that you work, Hyde Park, you mentioned, I believe, Dorchester, which isn't it doesn't provide the easiest commute to get to Luz's area or to get to the waterfront. So from your work, what are you hearing as far as resiliency and inclusion when it comes to Black and brown folks in this area getting down to there's so much wonderful work going on from the aquarium, the coalition, the ICA, and other folks. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of things. So Mass Inc. did a survey, I think 2021, around what are the most important things that we could do to have an inclusive waterfront. And they listed a bunch of things, but one of the things that they noticed was that people didn't feel that they were included in the Boston waterfront. And when I thought about inclusion, I thought about, what does that mean? And I broke that down to being welcoming. And when I think about being welcoming, I think about my own house. People say I have a welcoming space. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that I had thought about them before they got here. And the things that I provided for them in the space made them feel as though they were thought of, they were included. That means they have a space here, they belong here. And so for me, I hear that the people in the neighborhoods of Boston outside of the waterfront proximity don't always feel welcomed or thought of, or that they belonged. And so we just need to begin to think about, how does that look and feel for our communities, and ask them the questions. What do you need to feel welcomed and included in that space? Proximity is a really important piece, though, yes, right? Because Hyde Park and Dorchester are a little far, well, some parts of Dorchester are a little removed from the waterfront.
Yep.
And so for me, one of the first steps is to think about, how do you make the waterfront proximate to Hyde Park? One last example I want to offer about proximity is that the Neponset River watershed has some connections to the waterfront. How do we make that accessible? But also, how do we make people have a chance to get from Hyde Park to the waterfront easily so they can enjoy it and be a part of it?
I love, and I don't know if you saw my face, it twisted up a little bit because that'll preach when you said, I thought about them before they got here.
Yeah.
And so that intentionality, and that's also some of the mission of the Coalition for a Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront, the intentionality before folks come and also trying to get folks to come. Luz, let me ask you, when we talk about, I thought about them before we got here, can you speak to a perspective, and now more getting into your relationship with the water? How does the aquarium think about Black and brown folks and others before they get there? And then let's talk about your time, you know, growing up in the Cape. And Marcia, we're going to come to you. I know you do have to step out a little bit early because of the work. So we'll talk with Luz, and then Marcia will talk with you, and then you can go ahead and get on your way because we want you to be on time and proximity close to that appointment. Luz.
Yeah, you know, the aquarium is doing a lot of big picture thinking about our physical space in our building, and also our, you know, space that we take up in the community, and how, to Marcia, your point, how is it welcoming in a way that we proactively thought of these things. We didn't wait for something to happen or someone to say something. And so examples of that are, you know, more inclusive signage along the waterfront and in our around our building, easier wayfinding, so that when people are in the area, you know, if there are things in different languages or things, you know, for those with like ADA compliance, making it easier for people to navigate the area. And then, you know, I go back to programming too. So, you know, part of coming down to the waterfront is having fun. And I think that's part of the mental health conversation too. And so when we plan ahead to programming or even our exhibits within our aquarium, we are trying to proactively think, you know, what is going to resonate most with the, you know, all the communities within Boston. What do they want to see from us? Not just us telling them what we think they want to see. I think that's critical.
Absolutely. But we'll come back in 1 second, Luz, just because I want to ask Marcia your thought about just generally in being involved with CREW, which we affectionately call Coalition for Resistant and Inclusive Waterfront.
Like it.
How have you seen the intentionality change being a part of the coalition? How have you, what's your observation in as far as the intentionality around the things that Luz is saying? Because there has been a lot. You said you're in the background. There's a lot going on in the background that may not be as public as Luz. And so tell us from your perspective about the impact the coalition is having in these spaces.
Yeah, the coalition has been fantastic in that, for me, it has sought out our input. It started out with a conversation in our community before Park 54 restaurant opened up. We had some focus groups, and we asked the residents, what do you need to see the waterfront as inclusive and inclusive of you in Hyde Park? And so a query, a question, an outreach. And then I think also the Waterfront Coalition has also done quite a bit of programming. To Luz's point, the aquarium, when we had our Juneteenth event, we gave out free tickets to the aquarium to say, yeah, you're welcome, come on down. But also, I noticed the programming over the summer where Zaz, a local Hyde Park restaurant, had a pop-up and some music and some festivals. And I even attended a couple of events on the waterfront that were focused on Black and brown people. And so I think programming and events and asking us what we need are ways in which it could be more inclusive. And the Waterfront Coalition has done that really well. I've been so proud and pleased to be a part of the conversation in an ongoing way, not just hit it and quit it, or I'll ask you a question and leave, but in an ongoing way to engage us. So yeah. Thank you.
Marcia, you just have these ways of just saying things. I thought I was animated, Jesus. I know you do have to step away. So Marcia, if you just
I've got about 8 minutes. I got 8 or 9 minutes.
With what I'm about to check in with you on, it may take a good 6 of that.
Okay.
From a mental health perspective, Marcia, mental health, being a woman, and talk about inclusion and diversity. Under that, the waterfront. Talk to us.
Ooh. Oh boy. Okay. Well, let me start by saying that you
got 8 minutes, so you can take them all if you need to. No,
I won't take them all. I'm going to be pretty precise and concise here. What I want to say is, thinking of my own upbringing from the islands, I grew up around water, and I had a very traumatic experience with water where I lost a friend to drowning in the ocean when I was very young. And so I came up being very afraid of the water and still am. I can't swim for that reason. But then layer that with millions of Africans genocide on the water, right?
We've talked about this in this space, and go ahead. Yep, sorry.
Yeah. And then layer that with the many years still of limiting Black and Brown people from being near water. You can't go here, you can't go there, restricted, membership only, community residents only. And then I think for me, layer that with the way in which water for many people can be very ritualistic, very healing, very comforting, can bring certainly drinking of water we know is great for our bodies, right? But the ways in which being in the water can be relaxing and rejuvenating and healing. I layer all of those themes to think about how, as Black and Brown people, we want to really get clear about the use of water and the importance of water and the bringing back the restorative nature of water and restoring ourselves to the conversation of being committed to a space, an open space that heals us. So we have some work to do as a community, as people, to think about how we can take back what the water was intended to do for us as a people, which is to boil us, to carry us, to transport us physically and emotionally and spiritually, and to cleanse us. And we got to come back to that. And so that's the work I think of, not just this conversation about the coalition, but also our own community restorative work around justice and equity and inclusion on the water. And that's all I'll say.
You got 2 more minutes left, and you definitely covered everything there. Last question. We've talked about the mental health impact. We've talked about the programming with Luz, and Luz, well, thank you again for your patience. When it comes to climate change, and paying attention to what's going on with the design, Reverend Mariama White Hammond had referred to the fact that the waterfront needs to be designed in a manner when it's fun, when it's safe to be, and then it also needs to be designed in a manner that it is a protectant or deterrent of additional flooding in coastal areas. And so I'm just going to be very blatant with you and say, how important is it that Black and Brown folks pay attention to climate change, environmental justice, and things like that? Why do we need to make it a priority?
Well, I laugh because I think we, as I just said a few minutes ago, I think we forget the importance of the water in our lives and in our history. But I think Black and Brown people, most importantly, because we're most vulnerable when these things happen, we must pay attention. It's important because it matters, it impacts us. So many of our important neighborhoods are water facing, water access. And so for us as a community, more than anybody else, I would say, because we have less resources, we need to pay attention. Because we have less access, we need to pay attention. And because we really understand that this climate justice issue is all encompassing. None of us will escape the negative impacts when they do happen. And so we just need to pay attention to care for ourselves and our community and our families. And so, we need to pay attention and be engaged. It matters.
Marcia, you're going to drop these nuggets and then leave out on us, because we could lose she's been patient. I'm sure she has some commentary there as well, but we really appreciate you being here, and we'll be in contact. Events over the summer, Waterfront Wellness Week and the summit coming in the fall and things like that. And so I look forward to seeing and talk to you more. Go ahead.
And may I just say that the Waterfront Wellness Week, we're participating with the coalition. Thank you so much, Anthony and team, for making sure that we are going to have yoga. And actually this year at our Juneteenth event, we're going to have canoe rides on the Neponset River.
Listen, I've seen the setup up there. If you're talking about up by Hyde Park where they
Martini Shell, we're going to bring it back to the water. We're going to bring it back to the water. So we will do that, and we will continue that theme and that thread for our community as well. So we want to thank you so much for allowing us to have a voice in this conversation. Luz, so grateful for the work you're doing at the aquarium, you and Jessica, and for making us feel welcome as a community, and me personally and my family. And Jimmy, this has been a treat. I thank you so much for this important and poignant conversation. Let's keep it going. I'm so sorry to have to rush out, but
you're wonderful. You laid a wonderful foundation, and our good friend is in the building. We just have to tell you that he said hello. Conan says, and I'm sure both of you hold a straight face if you can when I say this. Conan is infamously known for saying this: "We belong everywhere."
That's right. We belong everywhere. And may I just give a shout out to Conan Harris,
Yes,
who was the one that introduced me to the
absolutely.
coalition and has been one who's facilitating our relationship. Thank you, Conan and Anthony and team. Thank you so much.
Definitely appreciate you. Marcia, please give my guide the best, and we'll talk soon.
Will do. Blessings
Thank
to you
you.
all. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
Marcia.
Bye-bye. So, Luz, you've been patient. You're a communication and a relations person. And so any response to what Marcia said right before she left us?
Yes, there's a lot on my mind. I think I think I'll touch on her most recent comments and then I'll go back to the mental health piece. But
Yes.
regarding climate change, I think something that is really on my mind is water and the flooding we experience and all of that is unfortunately one of many climate change issues we are seeing. And I think especially the neighborhoods that are more inland in Boston and also oftentimes happen to be more diverse are experiencing urban heat island effects, lack of green space. And those are also, those are just as critical of issues. And so it really comes back to, it's not one against the other. It's how do we come together and try to solve all of these issues as a community.
That's one of the things that I say often is that we can walk and chew gum at the
Totally.
same time and have it be inclusive. And so you mentioned a few when we started, Luz, that you grew up on the Cape. What is your relationship to the water? How did you end up at the New England Aquarium? Like that is, it must be an awesome position because you get to walk in there. The number one thing I remember from being a kid up until when I was there this summer is there is that smell that when you walk
Yes.
into the aquarium and you just know that you're in there because of the water and things they have to do. But that has not changed from being a kid until this summer. And so anyway, what's your relationship to the water, Luz?
Yeah. So my parents are originally from Colombia. They came to the States in the late 80s. I won't give the whole story, but they thought they were going to Boston and they ended up leaving Logan and the city is in the rear view mirror and they have no idea where they're going. They end up on the Cape. So that's how we've stayed
Are you
on the
serious?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Nobody knew what Cape Cod meant. So everyone just said, you're going to Boston. And they weren't in Boston and they never left. So that's how I was born on the Cape. Yeah, I mean, the Cape is beautiful and, so many natural resources and just kind of that small town vibe. And it's always going to hold a special place in my heart. But it was also interesting growing up as somebody of color and a woman of color in a mostly homogenous town and region.
Yep.
And that came with its own kind of, things to deal with. But I think if anything, I draw on a lot of that now in my career too, of wanting to make sure people feel welcome, especially by the water, because, despite everything, that was always a constant for me, being on the Cape, being able to go to the beach, whether it was with friends during the day or, later in the day, just with the calm of like you mentioned in the aquarium, the smells, the sounds, all of
Yes.
it. And I want to make sure everyone has that experience with the water or with water adjacent areas in some manner.
Got you. And what are the benefits? You mentioned mental health. So let's have that conversation. For
Yeah.
you, what does being by the water, Luz, and mental health? All
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah. It's really calming. I think there's, not to get too kind of artsy with it, but there's
You're good.
something beautiful about the like coming and going of the ocean and, framing that as even when you have a tough day, things come and go, tomorrow will come, so it's kind of that circular concept is really calming. And I think, in the spirit of International Women's Day, women, we all know, disproportionately have to hold caretaker responsibilities oftentimes, and that can be a lot. And I think the pandemic exposed a lot of that, especially, and made people have conversations they hadn't had before. And so I think it's on all of us to make sure that women especially have these natural resources that they don't have to pay money to go to. They don't have to, give anything of their own. They can just be and we have the responsibility of making sure those spaces are built in a way that encourage people to go to them. So yeah, I think there's so many natural mental benefits to the water.
Have you recognized any health benefits of being near the water?
Yes, I mean, we are right along the Harbor Walk, and
Yep.
every day we see so many people jogging by or walking with a friend. And so, there's opportunities for exercise. Marcia mentioned before she dropped doing yoga. There's so many opportunities to activate that, and just the natural air. You can't, especially in a time when we're working from home so much, you can't really beat getting outside for some fresh air.
It is definitely a benefit, and I've found myself being more intentional, even sometimes when down by the Encore area. Not the most widest space, but even just the ability to walk around it and just look at the water and see it. Before we let you go, and we're going to share you and Marcia's contact information, what do we have to look forward to from either with Crew or the New England Aquarium this summer or spring or whatever? What's coming up for the aquarium?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, in general, we would love to have everybody come visit the aquarium any day. You'll have my contact information, so reach out if you ever want
Right
to stop
now.
by. Yeah, tonight, especially in honor of International Women's Day, we are hosting a panel featuring just absolute powerhouses of women, and talking about women's role in the waterfront and environmental justice. So we would love to have you all join us there. And yeah, I mean, if I have anything to say about it, we're going to keep beating this drum of community work and getting out there and listening and hearing from people. And so I think there's a lot of good coming.
There's a lot of good coming, and there may be some combined good coming at some point this summer with the cafe and the aquarium as well. We got to shout out LT and say hello to her, definitely, and all of those, Anthony and everyone in the crew that made today happen, Ian and Tracy and whatnot. And I got to say hello to my good friend and cousin, family type, Lauren, there as well, because I'd get in trouble if I didn't. I'm sure she's watching. But Luz, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to share Marcia's information in a couple of seconds, but folks, I put in the comments Luz's email address so you can contact her, and also shared it here because some of you take screenshots sometimes. But reach out to Luz if you have questions, or go to the website also. Let me put that in, because what you can do, I believe that you all have, there we go. You can sign up and subscribe to the mailing list, because one of the things that we've talked about often is access, but it is kind of 50-50 when it is made available to us. We need to, take advantage of it. So I'm sure if you go to the website, that's neaq.org, you can sign up for the mailing list. And do you guys have like membership and stuff like that too?
We do. Yeah, we have a lot of options. Yeah. So it's on the website, but also I'm happy to chat with anyone directly.
Okay. I definitely appreciate it. And so I'll share Marcia's in a few minutes, but Luz, thank you so much. And I look forward to chatting with you soon and seeing you soon.
Yes.
And now I'm sitting up here reminiscing when you walk in, and on those first couple of steps, I'm at the aquarium. So
I know, it.
I need to make that happen again soon. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say thank you to the crew, which is the Coalition for Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront, for making this happen. They are with us every second Wednesday at 9 a.m. talking about waterfront, access to the waterfront, inclusiveness on the waterfront as well. Can't really go into what April is going to look like, but we'll keep you updated. April is going to be potentially a little bit different, so we'll let you guys know about that. But I just wanted to go in the comments and just say good morning to folks. Sharon, good morning to you. Naraki, Mama Java, Tara, Conan, my brother Anthony, thank you for helping make this happen. Rena, Sharon Cornelius, Sister Debbie, Opal, Daryl, and Soraya. Good to see you all in here this morning. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we are going to chat with folks that are working on an event that's happening on Saturday. I don't have the stuff in front of me, sorry. And we're going to chat with them at 9 a.m. about that event, some conversation around qualified immunity, and also talk a little bit about an incident with law enforcement and this family's loved one that suffered at the hands of law enforcement. And so we're going to have that conversation tomorrow. And I think that is it. Don't forget to save the dates of, I first said March 23rd through 25th, but now it's March 24th through 25th. I'm waiting to hear about the venue that I would like. We're down to 2 weeks. So y'all pray that I can get this venue. There will be a small fee assessed for one of the entrants, just because it costs to get a venue and food and awards and stuff like that. So the 24th and the 25th of March, save for our anniversary. And I think that's it for me today. We will see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. As the weather is getting better, be intentional about going down to the waterfront over by Neponset River, over in Dorchester, like right off of Gallivan Boulevard. If you're coming down Gallivan Boulevard headed toward Quincy, you take that right. Parking is kind of interesting over there, but there is a lot of space and access to the water over there. I've sat there many a day in the summer. I've even walked all the way down on the trolley trail or track to that area and just landed sitting there on the water. There are rocks there. And so as the weather is getting better on these, 40 and above days, throw on a nice hoodie and a jacket and just go out there and breathe, walk around, and enjoy the water. All right, folks, that is it for me today. Nicole, good morning to you as well. And Sharon Cornelia said, I'll be there, won't be square. I'm not going to mess with you about right on. No, sir, I'm messing. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at